Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Lana and this is the last video in the series where I do a breakdown of costumes in Amazon's The Rings of Power. I did separate videos on Disa, Galadriel, and Tarmiriel's outfits. They'll be in the description box below. But I'm going to condense the rest of the costume commentary into this video, since I don't have that much to say on each costume to make a full video out of it, and since I want to make a more general point to the costume design in The Rings of Power. So, my main issue with the costumes that I've seen in trailers and released images so far is this. Sort of low effort, poor imagination, and relatively little sense of the world that the outfits, and of course the characters, appear in. When you look at Lord of the Rings, which we'll be doing a lot for comparison, you see that the costumes don't look like costumes. What I mean by this is that when an outfit is worn by a particular character of a particular race in Middle-earth, in a particular environment, that outfit fits into the context, into the environment, into the scene. It blends in seamlessly. Let's look at elves. In their natural, peaceful habitat, aka when they're not going into battle, they wear long, flowy, regal clothes. It shows elegance and power and sort of harmony with nature. They don't need to be dressed practically to do any sort of mundane physical chores. They can afford to lounge around in their finest silks and velvets, in natural, fairly loose cuts, with long sleeves and trains, with their hair down and with their crowns, because they don't need practical clothing. Their day-to-day life and environment doesn't call for it, which is being conveyed through the costumes.
What I was looking for was the sense that these people were not of this earth, this Middle Earth. You wanted the sense that these people sort of floated through the landscape.
The exact opposite of the elves' elegance are the dwarves. Fair enough, we only see Gimli in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, but we can look at The Hobbit. Outfits are heavy-duty, armored, practical, robust, for traveling around as Thorin's company does, battle-ready and suitable for long journeys. And it's actually similar in Gimli's case too. Clothes reveal so much, not only about a race of a character, but also about their role and journey.
We put a lot of detail into this because the idea is that for the character, for Viggo as an actor, as he puts on this costume, layer by layer, he is putting on that character. The idea was that this was a man of great travel, so it needed to be very flexible. And it needed to look like this guy had slept in any cave or crevice and travelled great distances. Viggo Mortensen, who played this character, really was into this idea that he himself had repaired it when it starts to sort of come apart. It's got certain sort of medieval ideas in this attached sleeve, which I actually think is a very practical thing as well. I mean, if it gets too hot, if it's summer and this person's travelling, it does have the idea behind it that this can be detached.
If we go to Legolas, who is also an elf, but is on the road with the Fellowship, traveling, fighting, and so on, we can see the difference in his clothes as opposed to those of the other elves. But the essence of the style is still there. Lightweight, not heavily armored with chainmail or breastplates or anything like that. It's much more natural and organic, natural colors, leather, flexible outfit design. In fact, when we look at the Fellowship, they are all dressed for the road, just in different ways. And those outfits don't strike us as costumes, but as something a person in that fictional land, in that time, might wear for a journey like that. Each article of clothing has a purpose. Cloaks because they need them for the rain and cold. Boots, weapons, and so on. Nothing is there by chance or due to aesthetic reasons only.
There's lots of hand stitching on it, there's lots of men's in it. The idea was that this man needed to look like he never took this costume off. There needed to be sort of quite a clear idea that the Rohan people were a lesser civilization, I suppose, compared to Gondor.
Everything has a purpose, either practical or to indicate the status or race of the character. Rohan is not as grand or as polished as Gondor. Eowyn, the niece of a king, can afford pretty luxurious fabric and embroidery, but she has no elf nobility, for example. Gandalf's outfit becomes not only white after his transformation, but also much more elaborate, symbolizing his higher status. Now let's go to the Rings of Power, or what we've seen so far. I'm not saying that all characters' outfits are completely out of place and horrible, but there are a few examples where it seems as if important questions were neglected, such as, what is the purpose of the outfit? How does it serve the character? Where is it going to be worn? One such example is Disa, as I mentioned in my full costume breakdown. Her costume design seems inconsistent with what we know of the dwarves and how we've seen them portrayed so far. The men and women, to be fair. This outfit doesn't seem like something you would wear if you lived in a mine, princess or not. Nothing conveys her status or wealth. Sure, she's donned in gold, but the pieces don't look particularly expensive. The fabric of the dress also seems rather dull. There are no layers, it's all one color, one fabric. It doesn't seem well fitted or particularly flattering. Or look at this armor. If you're going to battle, you will want nose guards that actually cover your nose, and you probably won't appreciate this horribly unpractical helmet that will limit your mobility, will be a hazard for your fellow warriors around you, and will make you into a perfect target for the enemy who will see you from a mile away. You also probably won't appreciate steel armor when you're making your way through a freezing icy desert, especially if you have steel on your hands while climbing an ice wall. Or look at this image of the Harfoots. I'll give Amazon some credit, aesthetics aside, the clothes do look like they are made of natural materials and dyed with something that the Harfoots could find in nature. But what is this in their hair? I'm guessing it's supposed to be some sort of camouflage element to allow them to blend in with the surroundings more, as was sort of hinted at in the trailer. But A, why would they need that? They're not hunting for prey, and they're not running away from anything or hiding from anything. And B, from a practical point of view, it's ridiculous. You live out in nature and you add twigs and leaves into your hair on purpose? And if it is, as I suspect, a stylistic choice, it doesn't look good. It's as if they're actively trying to make them more primitive than the hobbits we've seen in The Lord of the Rings. Put dirt on their faces, twigs in their hair, and dress them in rags. That'll do the trick. There are some nice or decent looking costumes in the show, don't get me wrong, but the main difference between something looking cheap versus expensive is the craftsmanship that goes into making it. If you've ever wondered why some Halloween costumes look so cheap, that's why. Because they're made of cheaper fabrics with no layering, no lining, no tailoring a garment to a person. It's all made quickly and as efficiently as possible to fit as many people as possible. That said, it's the golden details on pretty much all the costumes in the Rings of Power that really ruin it for me. Sure, it's easier to plaster this gold leaf thing onto cloaks and dresses, but the garment ends up looking flat and unnatural, out of place. Too modern, too manufactured. Compare this to actual embroidery that went into making some of the Lord of the Rings costumes.
Then we worked in this brocade. The girls in the wardrobe department have actually hand-stitched all of this embroidery. Hours and hours of work.
It looks like this could actually be done by craftsmen and craftswomen in Middle-earth. Like someone could create it from the materials found in this fictional world. It looks so much richer, heavier, more luxurious, and has that handcrafted ancient vibe to it. Like it's one of a kind. And that's exactly how a lot of the costume pieces or elements in Lord of the Rings costumes were made. By hand. Where in Middle-earth are you going to find gold leaf to gild this cloak or print it on? Or how are you going to create some of these textures? It seems out of place. Along the same lines is this. The design and fit are not bad, but the quality of the fabric. Maybe it's just because it's a still and maybe it will look better on screen when it's moving, but this looks like some gold plastic leather to me. Or some modern gold material that you can find online for $5 a yard. Not something you'd be able to craft in Middle-earth or something that elves would construct for themselves out of natural fabrics and techniques that you can actually do by hand since you don't actually have machines in this era. Look instead at some of these examples from Peter Jackson's trilogy. Much is done by texturing and layering the fabric, just like one might do historically, and it gives it that ancient feel, a 3D feel. The colors are generally natural, though some of them are a bit out there, mainly to look better on screen, and yes, some fabric choices perhaps didn't age superbly well, but generally, I'd say they still look very good. It's almost poetic how Amazon seems to think that plastering gold on everything makes a garment look regal and expensive and classy. They don't seem to truly understand the spirit and the soul that goes into making a garment, to make it truly come alive. It's not a costume, even though technically speaking it is, but it must give you, the viewer, a feeling that it isn't a costume for that character, but instead that it is their day-to-day outfit. The careful and well-thought-out choices of fabric, layers, the cut and fit, the uniformity, the purpose of the garment, the choice and creation of details such as embroidery or ornaments that make sense. That's what truly sets a movie costume into a fictional or non-fictional place and elevates it from just a costume into a timeless garment for that era, place, and character. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe for more similar content. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'll see you soon. Bye!